Have you ever looked at the world and wondered why there is so much pain? A child gets sick. A natural disaster destroys a town. Someone chooses to hurt another person for no good reason. These events force us to ask a difficult question. If there is a good and powerful force in the universe, perhaps a God who is all-loving and all-powerful, then why does evil exist? This is the heart of what philosophers and theologians call the problem of evil. It's a puzzle that has troubled humanity for thousands of years, a shadow that falls across every culture and every generation, pushing us to seek answers in the deepest parts of our faith and our reason. This question isn't just an abstract thought experiment for scholars to debate in quiet university halls. It is deeply personal. It touches us when we experience loss, when we witness injustice, or when we are faced with our own capacity for causing harm. The existence of suffering challenges our most fundamental beliefs about the nature of life and the cosmos. Is the universe a kind and orderly place, or is it random and chaotic? Is there a purpose to our struggles, or are they meaningless? Finding an answer, or even just a way to live with the question, is a fundamental part of the human journey to find meaning in a complex and often painful world. The problem can be broken down into a simple but powerful logical dilemma. If God is all good, he would want to prevent evil. If God is all-powerful, he would be able to prevent evil. And yet, evil clearly exists all around us. This apparent contradiction has led people down many different paths. Some question the existence of God altogether. Others try to redefine what it means for God to be good or powerful. And many more have developed intricate theological explanations that attempt to reconcile the reality of suffering with their faith in a benevolent higher power, creating a rich tapestry of human thought. Across the globe, from the ancient deserts of the Middle East to the serene mountains of Asia, every major spiritual tradition has wrestled with this profound mystery. They have offered different maps to navigate this difficult territory. While their answers may vary, the question itself is a universal constant. It is a shared thread in the story of humanity, a testament to our relentless search for understanding in the face of life's greatest challenges. Exploring these diverse perspectives can help us better understand not only the world's religions, but also our own place within this grand, ongoing conversation about the nature of good and evil. In the Western world, the Abrahamic faiths, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, share a common foundation: the belief in a single, all-powerful, and benevolent God. For these traditions, the problem of evil is particularly sharp. How could a perfect creator allow imperfection and pain into his creation? One of the most common answers centers on the concept of free will. The Christian tradition, in particular, argues that God gave humanity the freedom to choose between good and evil. True love and true goodness, the thinking goes, cannot be forced. They must be chosen freely. The unfortunate but necessary consequence of this gift is that humans can, and often do, choose to inflict suffering on themselves and others. This idea of free will is often connected to the story of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. Their choice to disobey God introduced sin and suffering into a previously perfect world. From this perspective, evil is not something God created, but rather a corruption of the good he made, a direct result of human disobedience. Another powerful idea, especially within Christianity, is the concept of soul-making. This theory suggests that adversity and hardship are not pointless. Instead, they serve as a kind of spiritual crucible, a fire that tests and purifies us. Through facing challenges, we develop virtues like courage, compassion, and resilience, growing stronger and more complete in the process. Within Judaism and Islam, we find similar themes, but with unique nuances. In the Jewish tradition, the reasons for suffering often remain a profound mystery, something beyond human comprehension. The Book of Job tells the story of a righteous man who suffers terribly for no apparent reason. In the end, God does not give Job a simple explanation. Instead, he reveals his immense power and wisdom, suggesting that human beings are not in a position to question the divine plan. Faith, in this context, means trusting in God even when his ways are inscrutable and our pain feels overwhelming and unjust. Similarly, in Islam, suffering is often seen as a test from Allah. Life on earth is a trial, and how a person responds to hardship with patience, faith, and perseverance is a measure of their devotion. The Quran teaches that Allah does not burden a soul with more than it can bear. Hardships are opportunities to turn to God, to strengthen one's faith, and to be purified of one's sins. For all three of these Western faiths, while evil is a terrible reality, it is not the final word. It exists within a larger divine plan, whether as a consequence of free will, a tool for spiritual growth, or a test of unwavering faith. When we turn our gaze to the East, we find a very different landscape of thought. In traditions like Hinduism, Buddhism, and Taoism, the concept of a single, all-powerful personal God is often less central. As a result, the problem of evil is framed in a completely different way. It is less about justifying the actions of a divine being and more about understanding the natural laws of the cosmos. In Hinduism, the concepts of karma and samsara are fundamental. Karma is the law of cause and effect, where every action, thought, and intention creates consequences that ripple through a person's life and future lives. Suffering, from this viewpoint, is not a punishment from a god, but the natural result of one's own past negative actions. Samsara is the endless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, driven by this karmic engine. We are all trapped on this wheel, experiencing pleasure and pain based on the karmic baggage we carry. Evil and suffering are therefore not an intrusion into a perfect world, but an inherent part of this cyclical existence. The goal is not to question why the cycle exists, but to find a way to break free from it and achieve moksha or liberation. This perspective shifts the responsibility for suffering squarely onto the individual, empowering them to change their destiny through righteous living, devotion, and the pursuit of spiritual knowledge. It is a system of cosmic justice that operates impersonally and perfectly over countless lifetimes. Buddhism, which grew out of the Hindu tradition, takes this focus on suffering one step further. The very first of the Four Noble Truths states that life is inherently characterized by suffering, or dukkha. This doesn't just mean overt pain, but also the subtle dissatisfaction and stress that come from impermanence and unfulfilled desire. For Buddhists, the question is not why is there suffering, but rather, what is the cause of suffering, and how can we end it? The Buddha taught that the root cause is craving and ignorance, our attachment to things that are impermanent, and our misunderstanding of the true nature of reality. Evil actions are those born from greed, hatred, and delusion. The solution, then, is not prayer to a god to intervene, but a practical and personal path of self-discipline and enlightenment known as the Noble Eightfold Path. Taoism offers yet another perspective, viewing the universe as a balance of opposing but complementary forces, yin and yang. Evil or misfortune arises not from a malevolent force but from disharmony, when things are out of balance with the Tao, the natural way of the universe. The goal is not to defeat evil, but to cultivate harmony within oneself and with the world, to move with the flow of the Tao rather than struggling against it. In these Eastern views, suffering is less a theological problem and more a practical one, with a path to resolution found within. When we place these Eastern and Western perspectives side by side, the differences are striking. The West often conceives of evil as a moral battle, a cosmic drama between a personal god and the forces of rebellion or sin. Suffering is often framed as a test of faith or a necessary byproduct of free will, a temporary condition in a linear journey toward a final judgment or salvation. The focus is on a relationship with a divine other who created the world and remains involved in its affairs. The ultimate resolution to the problem of evil lies in God's hands, in a future redemption that will make sense of all the present pain and injustice. In contrast, the East tends to see evil and suffering as part of an impersonal cosmic system governed by natural laws like karma or the Tao. The problem is not moral disobedience against a creator, but rather ignorance and disharmony. The source of suffering is found within the self, in our desires, attachments, and misunderstanding of reality. The solution is therefore also internal, a path of self-discovery, discipline, and enlightenment that leads to liberation from the cycle of suffering. It is a journey of self-reliance where the individual holds the key to their own salvation, not by appealing to a god, but by transforming their own consciousness over many lifetimes. Yet, beneath these profound differences, we can find shared threads of wisdom. Both traditions acknowledge the stark reality of suffering and refuse to dismiss it as insignificant. Both offer a sense of hope, a belief that suffering is not the ultimate reality. Whether it is called salvation or enlightenment, there is a path toward a state of being free from pain. Furthermore, both East and West emphasize that our actions have consequences and that cultivating virtues like compassion, wisdom, and kindness is essential. They agree that how we respond to suffering, our own and that of others, is what truly defines our character and our spiritual journey. Ultimately, the problem of evil is a question that belongs to all of humanity. It forces us to confront the deepest mysteries of existence. In our modern, interconnected world, we have the unique opportunity to learn from these diverse streams of thought, blending ancient wisdom with contemporary understanding. There may never be a single, simple answer that satisfies everyone, but by exploring these different perspectives, we can cultivate a greater sense of empathy, a deeper intellectual humility, and a more profound appreciation for the shared human quest to find light in the darkness, meaning in the midst of suffering, and purpose in this beautiful, heartbreaking journey we call life.